I'll tell you a funny story before I get into what I'm going to talk about. I ran into Joe Klein out in the hallway. Joe will remember this. A lot of folks don't know, my freshman year, I actually played at the University of Arkansas. I played for Coach Sutton. If you remember that team, U.S. Reed was on that team, Brad Fress, Tony Brown, Scott Hastings, some of those guys. And Joe was a year younger than me, and Coach Sutton asked my roommate, Brad Fress, to host Joe on his official visit. Well, since I was Brad's roommate, I got to tag along. And we did such a good job with Joe, he went to Notre Dame. Next year he came back and I'd already left, so I don't know, there may be a correlation there, but we go back a long way as kids. You know, anytime you speak, and some of you have done this, maybe you even do it for a living, but anytime you speak, you're always running the risk of embarrassing yourself, saying the wrong thing, and especially nowadays, everything's captured on a cell phone or a camera or something. But I want to tell you a funny story. When I left UCA, I played at UCA. I played, in fact, I hold the assist record at UCA, and here's why. I passed the ball to Scottie Pippen. I was smart. But when I got done playing at UCA, I had the privilege to play with a team that's no longer in existence, but it was in Memphis, Tennessee, called the Spirit Express. It was a lot like Athletes in Action. Back in those days, we would play exhibition games against colleges all around the country. In fact, we played the Razorbacks, in '85. I think it was Joe's senior year, we played against them. And so we used to do that, but we would also play internationally. We represented the United States in a lot of different tournaments. I played in the original Australia games in 1984, and we were the first American team of any sport to play in Cuba in 1989. So I had a chance to play all over the world. And I know what you're thinking. You look really short, fat, and white. Yeah, I'm all three of those. I mean, I am. My dad was a high school coach, and I grew up around the game, and I love the game, and that's probably one of the reasons I went into coaching was because of my dad, but I love the leadership part. I wish I had someone on my team that would be a leader right now, but I love that. Well, one time when I'm at Spirit Express, we're overseas, we're over in Europe, and so our team was a Christian team. We shared our faith a lot, and a lot of times on Sundays, we would be asked to come to a church and speak. But this particular time, we were playing in a tournament. There was not a set church per se we were to go to. But we got up the next morning, or the night before, actually, my coach said, I think we're going to get up and go to church tomorrow. Did anyone see a church around here? I raised my hand. Yeah, coach, there's one about 3 or 4 blocks down the street. Now, you got to keep in mind, we're in a country that doesn't speak English, so I don't even know what it said on the church door, but it was a church. So anyway, we go to church, and we get there just a little bit late, and it's pretty hard to sneak in with 7-foot guys, and a basketball team has kind of caused a commotion as you walk in. But anyway, we go in, and there's 2 rows left. There's the front row and the second row. But we got enough Baptists on our team, they weren't going to sit front row, so we go into the second row, and we're sitting there. This minister, priest, whatever he was, gets up and starts talking, and now all of a sudden we're like, oh man, he does not speak English, so we have no idea what he's going to say. So now they're kind of looking at me like, okay, Mr. Leader, you want to do something now? How about helping us out? And I said, no problem. There was one guy sitting in front of us in the front row. I said, whatever he does, we do. If he stands up, you stand up. He kneels, you kneel. If he sings, move your mouth. No one knows any difference. Okay, that's what we're going to do. High-fiving in the pews. We're excited. So the service is going along pretty good. We get about halfway through, and right before the message, the minister gets up. He says something. This dude in front of us stands up. 12 players, 2 coaches, and a trainer all stand up. We're standing. All of a sudden, there's just a roar of laughter. We look behind us, and you guys can imagine these cathedrals, big, long row, a walkway and rows of pews on both sides. Everyone is seated, laughing hysterically. We have no idea what just happened. We kind of slumped back down in our seat. From then on, he stood up. We checked the rearview mirror to make sure that we were doing all right. So at the end of the service, we're walking out, and the minister's there, and he, in English, says, thank you for coming. I was thinking, dude, if you just spoke English before this, we wouldn't be having this issue. And my coach was embarrassed, and he said, we really did not come to make a mockery of your service. We apologize. could you please tell us what we did? The guy said, oh, it's really kind of funny what we did. He said, I announced there was a birth in the congregation, and I asked the father to stand. So if I have corn in my teeth or chicken, not going to bother me at all. Not going to bother me. This is my 28th year of coaching. It's hard for me to say that because, when you work with 18 to 22-year-olds, they stay the same age your entire career. You get older, but you don't think about it till you get up, look in the mirror, and you go, man, this thing's taking a toll on me. And I love that about what I do. I love working with young people. I love having an impact in their life. I love getting a chance to counsel with them, possibly be the father figure they don't have, possibly help them through a tough time. We had a young man last week. We're in New Orleans. He knocks on my door. He says, Coach, I got to talk to you. And I could tell something was wrong. And he literally collapses on me crying. He said, my baby sister has a brain tumor and they're going to operate on Friday. And we sat there and cried together, and it felt so bad. And she came through it with flying colors. It was great. But just the fact that you get to be there, that's a special moment. And that's moments that you all don't see. You see the game, and you see the kids, and you see these things, but we get a chance to do that. So I got my start at Oklahoma State University with Coach Sutton. I played for Coach Sutton for 1 year, and I stayed in touch with him. And so when I got done playing at UCA and with Spirit Express, Coach had left Kentucky. He was kind of remaking his career at Oklahoma State, and I got a chance to go back. Our first staff, and a lot of you know Jimmy Dykes, in fact, one of Joe's best friends. Jimmy was on that staff. Bill Self, who's at Kansas. Rob Evans, who was my boss at Ole Miss. That was our first staff. So I learned a lot from those guys. And on top of that, Mr. Henry Iba was still alive and came to practice a lot. So I got to sit there and soak all that in. But I got to tell you a couple of Coach Sutton stories, and I know Joe will appreciate this. Coach Sutton has had a big impact in all of his players' lives, and he certainly has mine. And the thing I learned from Coach was bringing out the best in players. He was fantastic at that, just drawing out the best that you had. And he did it in different ways. It was always, to me, just right on. He could get on you hard, but then he'd come back and love on you, and it was a situation, it was just perfect. But there was one time, our first year at Oklahoma State, they had a lot of talent. Leonard Hamilton, who's now the coach at Florida State, was the head coach there, and he'd recruited fantastic. And he'd left to go to Miami. So when Coach took over, we had some really good players. But they had struggled winning on the road, and they'd struggled in close ball games, and they didn't quite know how to get over the hump. And Coach thought it was a lack of toughness. And all of us as coaches, if you coached in here, whether it's a peewee team or you're a high school coach or you're a college coach, we all think our players are soft. And so Coach one day, a guy, I can't remember who it was, turned down an opportunity to take a charge. Now the charge is the ultimate self-sacrifice of basketball, because I've got to give my body up, but I'm also taking 2 points away from the opponent, giving the ball back to our team with a chance to get 2 or 3, and putting a foul on them. There is no play that statistically can be better than a charge if you look at it. So Coach was really upset that this kid hadn't shown any courage. And this is the honest to gospel truth, Joe. He gets upset. I still remember he's wearing a white Air Jordan warm-up suit. Now, you got to understand something about Coach Sutton. He always had mints, crackers, his keys, Lord knows what else in his pockets. Okay? He gets upset. He takes the ball and he throws it to a young man on our team, and he's going to show us how to take a charge. He happens to throw it to the craziest dude on the team. The guy that you would say, oh, don't do it, but he's going to truck Coach. He's going to truck him. And Coach gets right in the middle of the lane, and he has no idea who he threw the ball to. And this kid gets, Fred Flintstones it, man. His feet start going, and he takes off. And he runs right through Coach, and Coach took it square in the chest and went back, and keys, stuff was flying out, all this stuff. And everyone's just kind of sitting there and knocks the wind out of him. And this is the funniest part. Anytime you kind of need a break, coaches you'll break and go shoot free throws or whatever else. And Coach says this, free throws. And knocked the wind out of him. And us as a staff, we didn't know what to do. And Coach gets up, he's collecting all this stuff. He goes over and he goes, "Guess I threw the ball to the wrong guy." My other Eddie Sutton story is really funny, and we were practicing one day over at Stillwater High School. We had an All-American named Byron Houston that played in the NBA for a little bit. He was the Big 8 Player of the Year, and this kid was nasty. I mean, in a good way. He played hard. He was tough. And, about everybody on our team was scared of him. Everyone in the league was scared of him. But, man, could that kid play. Well, we're over at Stillwater High one day, and we're warming up. We're like doing position shooting or whatever, and Coach just all of a sudden just goes off on Byron. "Byron, if you're not going to work any harder than that, you just need to go back to the dorm. I'm not putting up with that today." And we're kind of looking around like, Byron's a hard worker. What's going on? He just rips him. He finally turns to one of our managers. He goes, "Ronnie, take him back over to the dorm. He doesn't want to practice today." And Byron's lost. So he gets Byron, he takes him back over to campus, and we're all kind of standing there. He calls us all in, called the staff in. He says, "Fellas, some days your superstar just needs a day off." And that was Coach. He was good, but I guarantee you this, it was one of the best practices we had of the year, because everyone else like, man, if he kicks Byron out of practice, what's he going to do to me? So that was that's a couple of my Coach Sutton stories, and it's just I've just been so fortunate to work with guys like Eddie Sutton, Rob Evans, who is still to this day one of my closest friends. And when Coach went to Ole Miss, he asked a snotty-nosed kid who'd been coaching 2 years to go and be his top assistant. And I still don't know what got into him on that one. But we went there, and that program was absolute garbage. That was 1992. And they had not won 20 games since 1938. They'd been to one NCAA tournament, and that was in 1980, and that's because Kentucky and LSU had gotten upset in the tournament. And I think they beat Georgia and went into the NCAA tournament with a 500 record. So we had a big job ahead of us, and as was noted a minute ago, we were fortunate. At that time, there was a lot of really good players in the state of Arkansas. You all probably remember Anthony Boone and Keith Carter and Jason Smith and other kids that were good. Adrian Peterson went to Oklahoma State. Adrian Chilius went to Auburn. You had Quincy Lewis went to Minnesota. You had Ollie Thompson from Jonesboro went to Arkansas. I mean, that era was fantastic. And we were very, very blessed to get 3 or 4 of those guys, eventually 6. In fact, one of our last signees, one of my last recruits was Jason Flanagan, Coach Flanagan's son, who's now a junior college coach in Mississippi, and then we competed against Wes when he was at Auburn. So there was a long history with Arkansas kids at Ole Miss that kind of got us off the snide, and I was very fortunate to be around Coach Evans. There was no one that loved his players more than Rob Evans. Just absolutely poured his heart and soul, as his wife did, into his players. And I learned that from him. So, I feel like that I've had some of the best mentors that a guy could possibly have. Heck, 2 of them are in the Hall of Fame. Then the last guy I worked for before I became a head coach was Lute Olson. And unfortunately for me, I only got to be with Coach Olson about 6 months before he got ill. And I had to retire, and then I had the great opportunity of taking over that team for 1 year. And people have always said, man, you did such a great job. Well, it was he's had 2 NBA players, here, get them the ball and get out of the way. What kind of coaching is that, And but I did learn a lot that year about people coming together, people putting their personal agendas on hold in order for the good of the team. And that's, that has boded well for me as we've moved forward. I think the interesting thing about coming back to UCA has been this. When we got there, the team GPA was 1.7. We had some issues we had to get through. The NCAA put the team on probation for APR, just meaning the grade point average wasn't good enough or whatever else. And that's certainly not throwing shade at the people before me. It happens. It just happens sometimes. And so what we were able to do that first year was kind of put our fingerprints on it from the beginning. We brought in some young players. We brought in 7 freshmen at that time, and we just got the dog kicked out of us. And Joe was at ULR at the time, and they kicked the dog out of us. And we play Stephen F. Austin this Wednesday, And our first year, they beat us by 52 points on our home court. Last year, we lost to them at our home court in overtime by 1. And hopefully we can gain on it this year. But, it was very, very tough. And probably the question I get asked by my colleagues more than anything, they say, why do you stay? Why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep fighting that? And I guess it's the challenge of it all, but also the fact that, I didn't realize the effect UCA would have on me when I came back. I'd been gone a long time. My wife's a graduate of UCA. My sister-in-law is a graduate of UCA. My daughter's a junior at UCA. We have a lot of history there. And I guess I'd been gone so long, I didn't think about what this would feel like. And the first time I walked in that locker room and I looked around, and all those memories of sweating and bleeding and crying and laughing, they all came rushing back. And all of a sudden, this meant more than just coming back to UCA and it's just a job. And I think the thing in life, and maybe some of you have gone through this before, is you rarely get a chance to maybe build something that hasn't already been built upon. There is a history of good basketball. I played for Don Dyer, who was a fantastic coach, and when Scotty was there, and they did some things in the national tournament and different things, but that was pre-Division I. And it's a new level now. It doesn't mean that this is superior or whatever else. I mean, I wish I had some of my old teammates play for me now. Those guys were good. Half of our team were D1 transfers. But the thing is, it's a new day. And when you go from D2 to D1, you have a 4-year moratorium, they call that. You have to kind of prove that you are worth the membership, and you got to hit these marks and different things. And so as Rand Chapel took them through that was difficult, I know, because I went through part of that at Grand Canyon. And then when Corliss came in, same thing. It's difficult. You're now you're eligible to play, but your team really isn't ramped up to D1 yet. And then I got to give credit. Clarence Finley did a fantastic job of holding the thing together. And the thing is, that's tough to be the interim coach. I've been there and done that too. So when I came in, it was in bad shape, but it wasn't because of the people before me not trying. It just was the fact that it hadn't been D1 long enough. And so year one, we won 2 games, and ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea how. I have no earthly idea. We were 0-19, and I just kept telling my wife, I just don't want to be a statistic. I don't want at the end of the year, ESPN comes out with the teams that didn't win, and fortunately we won a couple of conference games, and the guys got a little bit of confidence, and every year it's gotten better. This year we're 10-11. We've lost 7 games by a total of 4.8 points. That's bad coaching. In 4 of those 7 games, we had double-digit leads, and 3 of the 7 went into overtime. We're 1-2, but we had the lead in all 3 games. So we're gaining on it. We're getting better. But the thing I want to really emphasize, and I won't be lengthy today. I'm not into boring you to death. There's certain things that I think that are so imperative when you're building something. And, everybody's path is different. My path as a coach has always been to be in building programs. When Coach Sutton went to Oklahoma State, they hadn't been to the NCAA tournament since 1965. That's hard to believe. That was 1990. In 65. When we got there, I remember one day Coach said, he said, I've got lunch set up in this room for all the coaches. He said, we're going to go in there, and he said, I've invited Mr. Ibe in there. Now, if you don't know who Henry Ibe is, go Google him, okay? He was the only Olympic coach we had prior to Bob Knight in '84 when Joe played in the Olympics. And Mr. Ibe is the father of motion offense. You hear that term used a lot. But I will tell you who took that and advanced it, not only Coach Sutton, but Bob Knight, Mike Krzyzewski. Those guys are disciples, really, of Henry Ibe. We got a chance to sit with Mr. Ibe. You didn't call him Coach Ibe. And I remember we got to ask him anything we wanted. It was my turn. I'm a young coach. And I said, Mr. Ibe, what makes a good coach? Now, I'm expecting this big, long dissertation. And he looks at me, and he says, remember his finger looked long and bony. And he said, sincerity. I act like I understood, like you do right now. Okay. Sincerity. And then he called everybody son. He said, son, if you're not sincere about what you're doing, you think they're going to believe you? And I've always lived by that. That whatever you're doing, you better be passionate, you better be sincere, you better be locked in, because the people you're leading, you can't fake them out. And especially young kids now. If you're not the real deal and genuine, they're going to see right through it. And sometimes you can even lead the wrong direction, but if you're leading with passion, they'll still follow you. And I think that's really important. So with that in mind, our staff motto is this: create an environment they want to come to every day. Create an environment they want to come to. Now, that's easy when you're winning. And that's easy when, you get ready to take a trip overseas like we did a couple years ago to France. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. That's tough when you're losing. That was tough this morning at our 8 a.m. practice, losing a heartbreaker the other night to Abilene where we just didn't play very good. That's tough. But you create that environment, and you do that with dignity and honor with the kids. You simply cannot browbeat them. You can never attack who they are as people. You can attack their actions, but never who they are as people. Because we all want dignity. We all have pride, and we all have worth. And that's one of the things we tell our guys. I think the other thing is consistency. I think you have to be careful not to let your circumstances dictate how you feel. I got to tell you a funny story. When I was, our first year, we rented a house there in Conway. And you folks that are from Conway, it was out in the Centennial area. And we were renting a house. And we were about 0-15 at the time. And we practiced in the mornings, a lot of times really early. And we had like a 6:30 practice. And I get up and it's dark and I start driving down the road. And in the area that we were renting, there were a lot of houses being built. And usually I try to come with something every day to give the guys to kind of hang their hat on. Just something that they can work with. Like today is, you will never be great when you're comfortable. And I believe that. You can never be great if you're comfortable. You have to get uncomfortable. You got to get outside of that. So this day I'm driving to work and I'm like, I got nothing, man. The tank is empty. We're 0-15. This thing's going the wrong way. What am I going to tell these guys? And I kid you not, I get to the end of the road, getting ready to turn on Tyler Street there, and there is a house being built. But I just had noticed it. I guess when I came home the night before, it was dark. I didn't see it. They had just bulldozed the dirt. And I thought, it was honestly, it was like the good Lord said to me, there's going to be a house there. But it isn't built yet. And my thought was this as I drive to work: how ridiculous it would be for me to run out there, stop the bulldozer guy, and go, hey, where's the house? What are you doing? How come the house isn't done? Because he had to clear the dirt. I watched that house. That house was, by the way, therapeutic for me, because every day I'd go by, oh, they poured the foundation. I was cheering for that house, man. That house was going up. And the thing was, that's the way we do sometimes, and that's what's tough, and that's why I feel, I love Mike Anderson. He and I grew up together as assistant coaches, and, everything's right with the world. He beat Ole Miss. The other day when he lost, he's bummed. We got to get rid of him. It's not the way it works. It's not the way it works. And it's a constant retooling, and it's a constant build, and what you do, there's no one that wants to win worse than the coach. No one. I don't care how much money you give to UCA, Arkansas. We do care how much they give to UCA, don't we, Doctor? We'd like to give a lot. But if you give a lot, you still don't want to win more than me. I promise you that. But that house was so good, and we talked about building the house. I don't know where we're at right now. I thought we were about to put the roof on until the last game, and like that storm last night blew the roof off, so I'm not sure. But I think we're getting there, so consistency is a big thing. I think you have to make sure you stop and look back. That's probably the biggest thing that I'm negligent of. We have already set the school record for most D1 wins in a year. Now, that may sound pathetic to you, but it's something that we've done. We've already won 9 of our 10. We only played one D2 this year, and 9 of our 10 wins are against Division I opponents. We went out to Northern California and beat Cal. We had UCLA on the ropes. We played Oregon tough. So the program is growing. But if I don't watch it, I won't look back and see where we came from. I'll just be caught right in the flow now. And I would encourage you in whatever you're doing in life, man, take time to celebrate your wins. I'm horrible at that. We beat New Orleans the other night. They had not lost at home, and my guys played as good as you can play last Saturday against, or Wednesday against New Orleans. They played a fantastic game, and I'm in the locker room going, great job, guys. I walk out to go to the radio, and I'm already thinking about Abilene. That's not good. Sometimes you need to celebrate your victories, and I think you have to look back, and you have to see where you've come from and what direction you're heading. You know, it's not easy. I'm fortunate I have great support. Dr. Davis has been a breath of fresh air for UCA, and I don't say that because he's here. I'd say it if he wasn't here. Just his vision for what the school is and what it can be is phenomenal. Dr. Brad Teague, I couldn't ask for a better athletic director. You know, he may fire me at the end of the year, but I still love him. And, you know, it's just, it's a blessing to work at a place where people care. I want to say this. I'd be remiss if I don't close with this. I draw my strength from my faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. I don't apologize for that. That's who I am. Our program is based on that. I don't sit there and beat those guys over the head with a Bible, but everything we do is on which we all should live by. You should live by treating your neighbor as yourself. You should treat each other with respect. You should have integrity. You should have all those things because that makes a happy life and it makes a happy environment. That's how we create an environment that everyone wants to come to each and every day. I'm excited about our future. We've got 10 games to go. We need to get busy to close this season on a really, really high note. But I like the direction we're going. We've recruited well. We've got some really good young players in our program. I think we probably have the freshman in the year on our team in our league. And we're going to lose a little guy named Jordan Howard that's awful good, but we feel like we got some players coming in behind him that are going to be fantastic. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. I hope I didn't bore you to tears. I hope you heard something that maybe you can apply to your own life, because I know when I sit and listen, I'm constantly taking note of people and either things they've done or things that they should do better. But thank you for your time, and God bless you in whatever your endeavor is in life. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.